Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Rotman. I head the content across one-to-one group in the assay, and I'm going to be here to moderate this discussion today with Peak Rare Earths. So I'm happy to welcome Russell Scrimshaw, Executive Chairman, Barden Davis, Chief Executive Officer, and Matthew Horgan, Head of Corporate Development and Investor Relations, to discuss some recent company updates. And so to kick it off, I'd like to pass it over to Russell to launch into his presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. Good morning, everybody, wherever you may be. I'll just make a very short introduction and allow Barden to take you through the details of the project. And we have Matt Horgan there who can go into a lot of depth as well, if appropriate. So let me just say that, look, it remains true in our view and that of our partner Shango, that the best undeveloped rare earths project in the world is Peak. Our recent discoveries of extensive phosphate, Flur Spar, niobium, and heavy rare earth deposits are significant enough to have major players circling for a partnership, and discussions are advancing. However, to be very clear, our primary focus is the development of the Mamba-Ngwala rare earth project. Recent rare earth concentrate price weaknesses in the sector have started to turn around. I think they're up by about 15% in the last several weeks from their lows, and we continue to have multiple encouraging discussions on equity alignment. In the meantime, there's a large group of funds and investment banks, which you might have noticed in a recent announcement. The investment banks and funds are mostly hosted out of Africa, but include several non-African bank subsidiaries. They've been working with our debt advisors, Waterborne, to position themselves for our debt component of financing and have indicated a pretty healthy appetite. However, we are of the view that we've got an opportunity to further reduce CapEx out of the project by looking at things that we don't really need to do initially, such as a new airport as one example, and Barden can take you through several others. And that will reduce our financing requirements significantly, and that work is well underway. Tanzania also, I know a lot of you don't know Tanzania that well, but it has a burgeoning economy and has developed a deserved reputation for the place to be in Africa. And it is hosting more and more Western-led mineral projects in a number of minerals, including graphite. Gold, of course, has been there with Barrick for a long time, but also nickel and many others. And several of them, of course, are critical minerals. So the next 6 months for us is going to be very important. We want to reduce the CapEx, as I mentioned a bit earlier, and that will lead us to secure our funding, we believe, running tenders for EPC or EPCM as it happens, and further develop our alternative mineral strategy. And there'll be much more on the horizon as well. So if I can deliver one message for you to take home, it is that the tide has turned, we believe, on the sector. Our key licenses, all our necessary government agreements are in place. We've set up the local subsidiaries with government members on that board, on those boards actually, Mamba Resources and Mamba Refinery. And we have the team both locally and in Tanzania and in Australia to deliver on this project. So if I can hand across to Barden now to take you through some more detail on the progress we've been making, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Russell, and good morning, everybody. So I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully that is coming up for everybody.
Yes.
So draw your attention to our disclaimer. As Russell has outlined, we have significant momentum behind us. Since the beginning of 2024, we've progressed cooperation with Shango, both from an offtake as well as a potential project level investment. We've received indicative debt funding appetite of approximately US 177 mil. We've near tripled the size of our special mining license area. We've progressed key work streams. We've identified further optimization opportunities that Russell's touched on, and we've revised our final investment decision timing to align with our Shango and debt funding processes. We've secured freehold title over our Tsite site in the UK, and we've commenced preparations to monetize that. And we've also delivered an extremely successful critical minerals program that supports our view that Ngualla is not only world-class, it's multi-commodity and it's multi-generational. So as mentioned, we've been progressing cooperation with Shango, both from a potential investment and an offtake perspective. Shango is a Chinese rare earth group. It's listed on the Shanghai Stock Exchange, market cap of approximately US $3 billion, and is the largest importer of rare earth concentrate into the Chinese market. Importantly, they've got a proven track record of working with MP Materials in the US, in which they've got a circa 8% shareholding, and supporting MP through a combination of offtake funding and technical support. They are our largest shareholder, and we see them as a key point of differentiation compared to our development peers. Now, whilst negotiations are continuing around a potential investment, we have agreed cooperation and transaction principles. So these include Shango subscribing for an interest of up to 50% in Ngualla Group UK Limited, which is the UK holding company through which we own our interests in Mamba and the Ngualla project. Continuing collaboration around CapEx, OpEx, and project optimization opportunities. Shango tendering a proposal to act either as a EPC, EPCM, or EPS provider. Finalising negotiations around an agreed value for that interest in Ngualla Group UK Limited, but for that to reflect some of the work that's been underway around CapEx, OpEx, and further optimisation. And then both parties working towards a final investment decision before the end of the year. Now, in sort of progressing those negotiations, a key objective for us is to deliver a materially higher valuation than implied by our current share price, and to limit the need for a future equity raising to fund construction and development of the project. We've got an attractive binding offtake agreement in place with Shango. That agreement covers 100% of rare earth concentrate, 50% of intermediate and final rare earth products. It's structured as a take or pay. It's got an initial term of 7 years with an ability to extend. And importantly, a pricing formula that delivers attractive high levels of payability, which we've set out in the bottom left-hand side. All but two conditions precedent have now been either satisfied or waived. In relation to the two outstanding conditions precedent, we've extended the deadline for shareholder approval to the end of June, and we're targeting a shareholders meeting within the first half of June. We've also extended the deadline around approval by the Tanzanian Mining Commission to the 30th of September. Engagement with the government is very much underway, and we do not expect any issues around that approval. Complementing our process with Shango on the equity front, we've recently announced the receipt of indicative debt funding of approximately US $177 million. Our debt process has delivered very strong appetite and momentum across African development finance institutions or African development banks, export credit agencies, and commercial banks. Discussions are ongoing with other prospective financiers, and we certainly see scope to further increase that level of debt funding. In terms of the composition of that indicative funding appetite, ECIC, which is the South African Export Credit Agency, has indicated appetite to provide both political and commercial risk cover. The Development Bank of Southern Africa has delivered $65 million of funding appetite. A very well-known South African Another very well-known South African development bank has indicated funding appetite of US 53 mil. CRDB, which is a leading Tanzanian retail and commercial bank, has indicated appetite to arrange a US $50 million tranche from itself and other Tanzanian banks. And we're also separately engaging with a broad suite of other Tanzanian banks around the financing. And we've also secured US $9 million from an East African commercial bank with a significant presence in country. As provided for under the framework agreement, we've recently been successful in expanding our special mining license to include 2 historical prospecting licenses. So that means that our SML area has increased from about 18 square kilometres to about 51 square kilometres. So that provides us with a much larger footprint, not only to develop the project, but accommodate future rare earth expansions, as well as potential future phosphate Flur Spar projects. It gives us scope to undertake a lot more exploration, as well as potentially develop in the future downstream operations, which could include a mixed rare earth carbonate facility. So from a project perspective, since the beginning of the year, we've been making substantial progress on key technical work streams, and that includes everything from roadworks, geotech assessments, water borehole drilling, hydrology studies. Dean doing a lot of work around ore variability analysis, which has given us some increased comfort around the integrity of our flow sheet. Also been doing some work around water treatment options. We've also completed a comprehensive tailings storage facility breach analysis. Importantly, we've identified a number of opportunities to materially reduce costs. And some of the key areas there are around deferral of an airstrip, reducing size and scope of camp, revising some of the plant equipment specs, adopting a more competitive tendering process, integration of early works and contract mining, as well as a material reduction in logistics costs. The target timing for a final investment decision is being deferred until the end of the year. And that provides us time to progress some of the optimization opportunities that I've flagged. It also gives us additional time to undertake some additional sterilisation drilling, which is important in the context of a very successful critical minerals exploration program. It enables us to complete the land valuation exercise, which was being held up until we had expanded that SML area. That's now complete, and that valuation exercise is underway. We're also keen from a CSR perspective to do some further work around an integrated project and community water solution. And of course, we want to align that FID timeline to accommodate our Shango investment and project debt financing processes. So we've recently secured freehold title over our Tsite site in the UK, and that supports a much higher valuation and more flexibility than our previous lease arrangements. Given our long-term intention to evaluate potential downstream operations in Tanzania, including an MREC facility, Tsite is no longer a core asset. And following a series of unsolicited approaches, we're now exploring a near-term exit option that could realise a significant gain, as well as a significant amount of cash that could limit the need for a future equity raising. Our critical minerals exploration program has been extremely successful, and as flagged, very much supports our view that this is a world-class deposit and is both multi-commodity and multi-generational. So the program is focused on the northern zone, which is north of the bastnäsite zone that forms the basis of our ore reserves in the Ngwala Rare Earth Project, and in the Brescia zone, which is to the northeast. Key elements of that program has entailed development of a geological model in the northern zone with assistance from SRK, assaying trench samples from the Brescia zone, which confirmed widespread Flur Spar mineralization at surface, completion of 57 drill holes for about 4,200 meters of drilling, which has confirmed widespread phosphate mineralization in the northern zone, as well as some high-grade intercepts of niobium, and has also confirmed a major high-grade Flur Spar discovery in the breccia zone. So within the northern zone, as mentioned, we've identified widespread and high-grade phosphate mineralization. And as you can see from the chart on the right-hand side, that is open in multiple directions. Importantly, we've also undertaken some bioavailability analysis on phosphate samples, and they indicate the potential to use our phosphate as a direct application fertilizer, which gives us a lot more optionality around how we develop that project. Now, our focus remains on developing the Ngqala Rare Earth Project, but we are keen to explore the potential of complementary critical minerals projects. And to that end, we've recently entered into an MOU with Mijingu Mines and Fertilizer, which is an established Tanzanian and East African phosphate and fertilizer group. We see this as an opportunity to expedite the development of a low-cost phosphate project. If you look at the right-hand side of the slide, you can see that Tanzania and other East African countries have very low levels of phosphate fertilizer application. Increased use of fertilizers, and in particular phosphate, is a key strategy for Tanzania and other East African countries, very much focused on boosting agricultural yields, enhancing food security, particularly in the context of rapidly rising populations. Within the breccia zone, as mentioned, combination of drill holes and trench samples are supporting the potential of a globally significant Flur Spar project. Right-hand side, you can see some extremely high-grade intercepts of Flur Spar. So some of those intercepts getting into the high 50% and low 60s. So, a very, very, very encouraging. The other interesting aspect of our critical minerals exploration program is that we've also identified significant rare earth mineralization, both within the northern and the breccia zone. And whilst the total rare earth oxide grades are lower than what we've got in the bastnasite zone that forms the basis of the Ngqala Rare Earth Project, those zones contained much higher assemblages of higher value heavy rare earths, so the likes of terbium and dysprosium. And that supports much higher basket values of rare earths. So we see some interesting optionality around heavy rare earths in both the northern and breccia zones. In terms of next steps on our critical minerals program, we'd like to complete some further drilling towards the end of the year, with the objective for delivering a maiden resource in the northern zone and a formal exploration target in the breccia zone. We intend to progress our collaboration with Mijingu in potentially expediting the development of a low-cost phosphate project. We also plan to continue to advance ongoing work around a Flur Spar flow sheet and continuing discussions with a number of prospective Flur Spar partners. So in summary, Peak today is in the strongest position in its history. The Ngqala project has been de-risked from a technical, regulatory and offtake perspective. We now have a pathway to a fully funded Ngqala project with multi-commodity optionality and with a near-term potential to realise a significant gain and source of cash from a sale of our Tsite site. Thank you, Amy. That concludes the formal presentation.
All right, thank you for that, Russell and Barden. So we are going to take some questions from the audience, and we have a few already. So to kick it off, can you walk through your latest thoughts around near-term funding requirements and strategies?
Sure. So, our quarterly came out end of March. That showed a cash balance of about $10.3 million. Some key points around that: our cash burn and spend has decreased substantially post-completion of our front-end engineering and design study. As flagged, a potential sale of Tsite would be an opportunity for us to raise a significant amount of funds. Obviously, to the extent when we conclude an investment with Shango, that will provide for the funding requirements for the Mamba and the Nguala project. We're currently contemplating Shango subscribing for those shares, so those funds would be injected into that entity. But there would also be some scope to structure a portion of that as a sale of shares, which would provide us with some liquidity at a peak level. Russell, not sure if you've got anything you'd like to add to that.
No, I think the only message that's worth adding there is that we think there are multiple sources of capital in the near term if we need it to carry us through. But we do have a lot of momentum in the project overall. So the board remains comfortable that we have a very viable way forward. But if we need to tap various sources such as Tsite, for example, we can do that in reasonably quick timetable.
Okay, got it. And keep the questions coming in. We have a few more coming from the audience at the moment. So a number of mining companies are currently facing some pretty significant challenges operating in the likes of Mali and Burkina Faso. Can you explain how Tanzania is different?
Sure. So, I mean, the first thing is Tanzania is located in East Africa, so different from some of the dynamics that we've seen in West Africa. Tanzania is known for a very stable political climate. Ever since independence in the early 1960s, there was always been a peaceful transition to power. Presidents are limited to 2 5-year terms. One of the other interesting aspects to Tanzania, which was very much sort of the vision of the founding father Nyerere, was that you don't have the tribal element to politics that you find in a lot of other African jurisdictions. You've got a president and a government that is very focused on foreign investment, very focused on enhancing the country's diplomatic image. The president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, has spent a lot of time offshore, Europe, Middle East, North America, but also China. Tanzania is regarded as one of the best jurisdictions in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, Tanzania is a member of the British Commonwealth, which is, I guess, to some degree, a testament to a degree of stability. The president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, is Western educated. She clearly understands that she needs to develop the economy with international investment into the economy. And as I mentioned a bit earlier in my introduction, that's one of the reasons Western mining companies are attracted to Tanzania right now and arriving in number. And I think it's worth noting too that not so long ago the US Vice President Kamala Harris visited. There's an increased interest from the Americans in the economy as well. So all of that adds up to a pretty stable, comfortable environment for mining companies to develop their skills. And Australians in general are flocking to Tanzania right now, not only for the tourism, but for the development opportunities, especially around resources.
Yeah, Amy, maybe just one other point to make is that the government has a 16% free carried interest into Mamba and the Nguala project. We like that as a concept. We think it creates a strong alignment of interest. Government also has board representation on the Mamba entities. I was in country a couple of weeks ago for our AGM and a board meeting. It's a very supportive environment. The messaging that we are getting from those government representatives, as well as the Minister minerals is what can the government do to assist us in expediting the development of this project. So it is very much a partnership approach. Getting this project up and running will deliver significant economic benefits to country and community.
All right, sounds good. Another question that's come in. Can you give us any indication on the timing of the sale of Tsite?
Look, we're working through that at the moment. We have a data room. There are parties that are in that data room. Look, we would hope that we'd be in a position to, potentially exit that within, the next couple of quarters.
Okay. And how is Peak thinking about its strategy around power supply for the project?
Yeah, so the power strategy is to develop a circa 11 megawatt power plant. That's a combination of solar, battery, and diesel. We're assuming we're not relying on a connection to the grid. Having said that, TANESCO, which is the Tanzanian power utility, has recently put in an 11 kV line into the Nguala village, and that was facilitated by the roadworks that we'd undertaken. So we're in discussions with TANESCO in terms of providing a connection to the camp. We do see that as an opportunity to reduce some of our power costs. Longer term, we would like to see potentially a high capacity transmission line coming to site. And if that did happen, things would be, we'd be able to materially reduce our power costs and take advantage of, some attractive low cost green power coming out of Tanzania. So Tanzania is blessed. It's got some of the largest lakes in the world. There's a lot of focus on hydropower. They're in the process of commissioning the Julius Nyerere hydro project. So longer term, there would certainly be an opportunity to augment our own power solution with, a more substantial connection to grid.
All right, sounds great. And another question, moving back to the Tsite project, how much are you expecting from the sale?
Look, we haven't provided any guidance on that. I think if you sort of look at a combination of our option premium, we also paid some extensions. We've done site investigation work. So historical costs, well in excess of probably about £2.2 million. We would be expecting multiples of that number.
Okay, great. So just seeing if there's any final questions from the audience before we close this out. If not, I'd like to thank Russell, Barden, and Matthew for joining us today for this webinar. We do, if you have any interest in, following up with the team, you can get in touch with my team at 1-to-1, and they can help to put you in touch, or you can get in touch directly with them. But thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you.